Hello and welcome to The Take. I'm your host, Chesley McNeil. Each weekday, we're looking at stories, making headlines, and bringing experts from our community to give their take. Here's a look back at some of the top takes from this week and how those in the know are seeing those stories that impact you. The Sean Combs sex trafficking trial resumes today with a former assistant back on the stand. So far, she's recounted multiple incidents of sexual assault, including being awakened by Combs allegedly assaulting her. The defense is expected to continue its cross-examination, focusing on her credibility and consistency of her allegations. Last week, a top official for Combs, Capricorn Clark, testified that he kidnapped her at gunpoint in 2011 after learning about an ex-girlfriend of Combs, Casey Ventura, having a relationship with Kid Cudi. And there was also a tease from the White House as President Donald Trump stated that he would consider pardoning Combs, although a formal request has not been made.
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter, but nobody's asked. But I know people are thinking about it. I know they're thinking about it. I think some people have been very close to asking. First of all, I'd look at what's happening, and I haven't been watching it too closely, although it's certainly getting a lot of coverage. I haven't seen him. I haven't spoken to him in years.
All right, joining us now is legal expert Dal Cohen and friend of the show. He's the former assistant Fulton County District Attorney and now serves as a defense lawyer here in the Atlanta metro area. He's always helping us analyze these high-profile cases. And Dal, welcome back to the show.
Good morning and thank you. It's good to see you and happy Monday. Happy non-rainy Monday. That's all I've got to say.
Non-rainy Monday. All right. Now, what do you know about this pardon? Like, can the president actually do this? I mean, what do you think?
Well, to start with, he has to either enter a plea or be convicted before it could even be considered. Now, having said that, can the president do it? Yes. Will the president do it? I would be, at best, very disappointed and disheartened because that would go to the heart of the criminal justice system. This is a horrendous, scandalous, worst case ever. If you can think about the music business where everything goes, this should never have gone.
Wow. All right. So we're anticipating the prosecution to bring a new digital evidence this week. How challenging will it be for the defense to counteract any potential incriminating electronic communications?
Well, think about being on the shore, on a beach, and a tidal wave comes at you. All you can do is try to dive out of the way here or there and then get out of the way. I don't think the defense can get out of the way. I think what the defense can do, if they do anything at all, is to ask a question here or there. There is so much evidence against Combs from so very many people from every direction that the best they can do, in my view, is hope A, there's a juror or two who said, this is the music business, who cares, no big deal. Or they say that this is not criminal, this was stupid. Combs had the syndrome of I'm the king of the hill, but he's not the king of the kingdom. That's the difference, perhaps. And they can go at it that way. But if they ask question after question on cross-examination, all it's going to do is solidify the testimony from the prosecution, from the feds, to the jury, and the jury hears it not once or twice, but 3 or 4 times. Be a bad move, in my view. Sometimes the best cross-examination, get it out of the jurors' minds, no questions, Your Honor.
People have been talking about maybe Combs taking the stand. Even Suge Knight was asked about it. He was saying that maybe he should take the stand and kind of just say that he's sorry and so forth and so on. What's your thoughts on him taking the stand?
Well, one, it's unusual for a defendant to take the stand. Having said that, this is a very unusual case. And Combs has an ego larger than all of us and taller than every complete building ever built or ever will be built. So with that, if he is directing his team, he may actually believe that he can convince the jury that he is not guilty of a crime. Maybe stupidity, maybe I overstepped my bounds, but I did everything that I did, and the women and the people that went for me, they did it voluntarily. I didn't force them to. And look, they worked for me for years. This wasn't a one-time only, an OTO. It was constant. So I don't think he'll take the stand. In my view, he should not take the stand because he doesn't know how to make himself small. And I'm sorry, that's just not who he is. It's not his persona. We'll see.
You thought from the beginning he was in what you called the deep yogurt. Is he still in deep yogurt?
No, I think he's in deeper yogurt. And I think the yogurt itself is starting to congeal even more where he can't move left or right, up or down. I think he is in terrible position, and the yogurt's starting to smell. And it's going to continue to smell, in my view.
Wow. I guess next, I guess if he's convicted, then we'll talk more about this potential pardon, which you obviously are against. I understand that. So, yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Darryl, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, man. We love your insight. Welcome back. You are taking a look at Atlanta's airport, where changes are coming to the way TSA screens pilots, flight attendants, and crew members. This comes after an 11Alive News investigates. Savannah Levins discovered airline crew members caught with weapons during a random screening at Hartsfield-Jackson. Savannah joins us now to take a look at this. And Savannah, what can you tell us about this?
Well, Chesley, let me start by explaining how those special screenings for crew members have worked for more than a decade now. So pilots, flight attendants, and crew members, they don't go through the normal TSA lines. They go through what's called known crew member or KCM lines. Now, these do not involve security screenings. They just scan their badges and they walk right through into the airport. Now, the goal is to make sure staff move through quickly so they can make their flights, of course, but every once in a while, KCM randomly selects someone to be screened. And that involves the process that's familiar to you and I, you know, putting your bag through the scanner, walking through the metal detector, etc. And our investigation found when these random screenings happen at Atlanta's airport, weapons have been found. It's already happened at least 4 times, Chesley, in the first 4 months of this year, where a flight attendant or crew member was quote unquote randomed and found to have a loaded gun. One was even carried internationally by a Delta flight attendant before it was detected. Here's some body camera footage we obtained from that.
Got a Delta flight attendant, wasn't screened, flew all the way to Santo Domingo, flew back to ATL from Santo Domingo. This time the randomized check came up and they discovered a firearm in her bag. Hopefully we'll never have this happen again, because I'm hoping this is going to change policy, because that's the most ludicrous thing I've ever heard, that known crew members don't get screened.
Wow, you know, I'm surprised by this, but it also sounds like the police officers were surprised by it as well, Savannah.
Yeah, Chesley, that's true, and we've heard that concern a lot from police, TSA workers, and travelers who have expressed it just doesn't make sense to them, right, not to screen all crew members all the time. But we have learned that changes are now on the way. TSA spokesperson Mark Howell tells me the agency will officially end the KCM program by the end of 2025, and they'll be replacing it with a new crew member access point program. Now, Howell said he could not yet reveal specifics, but in a statement did confirm it will be a, quote, security improvement.
I wonder, did you find out why they were not, was it just a trust matter or as to why the workers would go through, or just a familiarity kind of a thing?
Yeah, so KCM has been in place since 2011. It's kind of like an elevated pre-check where they don't have to get screened at all. It's kind of like, well, you're a trusted pilot or flight attendant, so we're just going to let you scan your badge and walk on through. But obviously there have been concerns because when they do get randomly selected, they're finding guns. So clearly weapons are being brought through, and then there's a whole other issue when they get brought internationally, Chesley, you know, like in that one case with the Delta flight attendant, the FBI had to get involved. So a lot of people think that this is a long time coming to start screening them a little bit more.
I don't want to give away too much, but did you find out what is there a penalty for these workers that get caught with weapons?
Yeah, so they're not arrested or they don't face criminal charges or anything like that. Most people don't, even just normal travelers, but they do have to face the same like TSA fines, and sometimes, you know, depending on the airline they work for, they might get let go and fired. It's kind of a case-by-case basis.
Gotcha. I don't know if you know this or not, but are you aware of any incidences where a worker at the airport was caught in some kind of violent exchange or anything like that?
Not a violent exchange. You know, Chesley, a couple years ago, someone's gun accidentally went off in the TSA line. So I've talked to police and they say that is a really big concern, more so that something will happen accidentally, especially if these guns make it onto the planes. It's just concerning to have a loaded weapon on these airplanes. So that's more of the big concern. No, in recent years, instances of any violent exchanges with these staff members.
All right, Savannah Levin's a very good report. I mean, I'm into it. I'm going to be watching. All right, thank you for joining us and bringing that to us. Hurricane season is now underway, and it could be an active one. It will last until November 30th. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is predicting 13 to 19 named storms. Typically, we'd get 14. 6 of those could become hurricanes, with 3 to 5 of those becoming major hurricanes, a Category 3 or higher. So that's what we're watching out for as we head into the season. Here in Georgia, parts of the state are still recovering from last year's strike from Hurricane Helene. That was a Category 4 hurricane that killed 37 people in the state and caused more than 1.25 million power outages. The result, severe weather. We had flooding in the area as well. So it could be another one of those seasons for us, folks. Here to examine or help us examine the season and how it may unfold is Jamie Rome, Deputy Director of the National Hurricane Center. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
All right, talk to me about the season. What are we looking forward to? It looks like you're saying an average to above average season. What does that mean for us?
Well, that seasonal forecast is looking at the total activity across the entire basin through the end of November. So based off the information we have now, the environmental conditions that are out there now, we're looking at conditions being conducive for greater than normal activity.
Mm-hmm. I see that you have a feature right there off our coast. Talk to me about that a little bit.
So right on cue, and this is pretty normal for early June, we're watching an area of disturbed weather here. It's actually what's causing all the heavy rainfall of the southern Florida peninsula, sort of draped down here over Cuba and the Bahamas. As this sort of pulls northward over the next several days, there's a small chance that it could develop into a tropical system or acquire tropical characteristics. But what we do know, what is very, very certain, regardless of that, is it's going to spread the heavy rains, heavy tropical rains into South Carolina and North Carolina mid to late week. Wow.
And as you said, right on cue, early, right? Is it typical to see these storms so early in June for the first part of the season?
Yeah, this is textbook in terms of how hurricane season would normally start. You would normally have this sort of old frontal feature sort of sagging down here, and as it lifts back to the north, they sometimes generate tropical cyclones, usually on the weaker side, but nonetheless, the heavy rains that come with these systems are anything but weak.
We are here in Atlanta, right? And we consider ourselves to be a little inland. I think folks are under the impression that when you're a little bit inland, you're a little bit safe from these storms. But as we saw from Helene last year, you can still have some powerful impacts around here. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, and we're seeing more of that, meaning these systems are able to penetrate farther inland with their impacts, either in the form of wind or more commonly heavy rains. In the case of Helene, unfortunately, you got both. But that's occurring more frequently. So people who live sort of just beyond the coastline, or maybe they have to drive several hours to reach the beach, often sort of think of hurricanes as not really their problem. And I'm here to tell you, increasingly, they are your problem.
Yeah, we felt those effects. We certainly understand that. With the increased number of hurricanes forecast, or at least named storms forecast this year, what's our probability of maybe seeing another Helene, or can you talk about that?
Well, the ability to predict that far out, that's beyond the reach of science, unfortunately. So we can't sort of pinpoint where storms are going to form or where they're going to go. But what we can say is in seasons that have conditions like we're seeing now, where you have greater than normal activity, the odds across the board, meaning for everyone in the hurricane belt area, go up. And that's why we're stressing, especially now at the start of hurricane season, the importance of readiness.
When you talk about getting ready, what should we do, especially for folks here in Atlanta?
Do the same things I'm doing. For the month of May, I prepared my home for hurricane season. So, get out your hurricane supplies, make sure you have everything you need. If your garage is anything like mine, things tend to walk off. So make sure you find them and put them back into their correct place, or replenish supplies, especially batteries and things like that. And more importantly, make sure you're ready and able to sustain a prolonged power outage.
Right, power outages certainly a possibility. Even tornadoes, right? We tend not to talk about that too much, but tornadoes are certainly a possibility with these hurricanes moving through, right?
Yeah, and we saw that last year in Florida. We had this huge tornadic outbreak on the eastern side of a system that moved to the west of us, just to the west of us. So yet another reminder of why we can't focus on where the center sort of moves. You sort of have to look at the totality of the whole picture that comes with the hurricane.
Quickly, last question for you. These storms seem to be getting stronger and stronger. Is there a reason for that?
You know, the science is still evolving on that, so we're still at the front edge of understanding. But in general, there is a body of evidence emerging that the impacts of these systems are increasing as things evolve. More specifically, we're seeing more heavy rainfalls occur with these systems, and you saw that last year with Helene.
Is there talk of adding maybe another category, maybe extending it a little bit?
No, there's been no, and the decision would be here at the National Hurricane Center. There's no discussion right now of adding an additional level to the Saffir-Simpson scale, because if you look at a Category 5, if you look at the definition of a Category 5, it includes things like catastrophic damage. At some point, we would just be watering down the message and sort of diminishing the messaging that goes with Category 4 and 5.
Got it. Jamie Rome, National Hurricane Center. So much thank you so much for joining us this morning and adding all that insight. Really appreciate it. This is the first of 2 National Gun Storage Safety Weeks, serving as a reminder for firearm owners to have their weapons properly secured. Joining me now is Kia Glenn with the National African American Gun Association. She's also a certified firearm instructor based right here in Atlanta. Kia, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on.
All right. Talk to me about Americans and storing safety. How good are we? Or how bad are we?
I think that once we purchase our firearms, we kind of get laxed and we're not as safe as we want to be. That's why the importance of engaging in gun storage check week twice a year is a good way, just as you would check your fire smoke detectors, or get an oil change. You should also incorporate the gun storage check week into your annual routine.
And when we talk about storing, Kia, we're talking about maybe a locked box or a safety deposit box. How do we do that?
Well, there's a few different variables for gun storage devices. You have the cable locks, and then you have a lock box. You have a lockable gun safe, which has a combination. Or you can even go as grand as a full-size gun cabinet or safe. And they can be as large or as tall as you are, as big as a room.
How much of your overall instruction focuses on proper storage?
Repeat that, please.
How much of your overall instruction, when you're instructing firearm owners, how much of your instruction goes to properly storing your firearm?
We do emphasize that because if you're going to own a firearm, it's very important that you maintain a safe environment in your home around people such as children. You could have someone who's in crisis at the house. You have guests or other members of the family. They lack the knowledge on how to use firearms, or you can also have a home invasion and have a thief steal your firearms. So we do stress the importance of locking away your firearms to make sure that they do not get into the hands of people who do not know how to use them or who should not be using them at all.
Kia, would you say that the apprehension to store properly comes from maybe some anxiety about if someone comes in and you're trying to defend yourself, you can't get that lock off or you can't open up the safe? Do you think that's part of it?
I do think it is a very important thing that people think about. That's why, just as you practice at home with what we call dry firing, which would mean that your magazine is completely empty, your ammo is stored in another room, and you practice firing and going through your fundamentals, you should also practice storing away your firearm and how quickly you can have access to it. So that's why having the different types of gun safes, such as biometrics, where you can do the fingerprint, or a lock box right next to your next to the bed would be something that we would encourage.
Gotcha. Georgia recently enacted a permitless carry. How much of that has changed the questions that you receive from your students during training?
It does change a lot. People want to exercise their freedom to carry, but we stress training and education.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to, just because you can, that does not mean you should open carry, just carry without any education when it comes to how to properly use a firearm.
Gotcha. How do people find you that are maybe thinking about buying a firearm, want to get that training from you, want to know how to store properly? How do we get to you?
You can email me at kia@bisonsurvivalacademy.com. KIA@bisonsurvivalacademy.com.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for training, folks, and thank you for your education that you've given us this morning. Really appreciate it. Kia Glenn with the National African American Gun Association. So we're going to start off today with a recent Consumer Reports investigation that has revealed that Kroger is collecting extensive data on its shoppers through its loyalty program, potentially leading to unfair pricing practices. Joining us now, back on the show, Derek Kravitz, an investigative reporter for the Consumer Reports Report. And Derek, welcome back to the show.
Yeah, hi, good morning.
Talk to us about this loyalty program. What is it, first of all?
Sure. Loyalty programs are everywhere, and Kroger, like many grocery stores, has a loyalty program for those that want to sign up. It's free. You put in your name, phone number, address, and you get discounts on various grocery items and products. Not that surprising, not that dissimilar to any other program, except that when Kroger does it, they collect a lot of data about you when you shop. So everything you buy, they put it into a dossier, a profile of you. That goes into a system where they infer a bunch of information about you. How much money you make, your education level, if you're interested in a new or used car, if you're interested in a cruise, various things to sort of market or advertise other products to you. There's nothing illegal or wrong with that, but some people just don't know this information is being collected about them, so they're surprised to know that it's out there, and when they get their profiles, they're surprised to see that they've made all these guesses about who they are.
So all that based on just the food I buy. So my strawberry purchase, my milk purchase, eggs, whatever, they kind of base it, he's has this kind of education level, he's this, that, and the third. How inaccurate are these profiles?
Well, so that's the thing. When you're just basing everything off of what you're shopping for, even if it's a lot of information over years, you're buying stuff for your kids or your spouse or significant other or anyone else, all that information gets mixed up, and it's hard sometimes to guess if that person is buying premium brands because they want to or because they're buying it for someone else or what have you. And so really a lot of it's inaccurate. So when we got a bunch of reports for a bunch of different people through Oregon's new privacy law, we found that a lot of the information was just wrong. The income was way off, education level, they said high school or college, and it wasn't. In other cases, we found that it was right, but it was just a really big guess as to whether they have a dog or a cat at home, or whether they're really interested in domestic or international travel. The people say if I had been asked this, I would have probably given them a good number, but they didn't, and so it's a little bit disconcerting for folks.
What kind of risk does this pose to your purchasing power, or when it comes to pricing and promotional items?
So there's an issue when it comes to price discrimination. So the problem here is that a lot of pricing at grocery stores is driven through discounts and loyalty programs, increasingly so, especially for items that are Kroger brand or in-house, right? So if you're giving discount or offers to a specific group of people that they deem to be especially loyal, super shoppers, and not to everyone else, that creates an unfair price balance there, right? Price discrimination. And so that's the issue. And folks that we spoke to say, hey, I signed up to this, it'd be great to know if I'm in the special cohort or if I'm in the unspecial cohort. And if I don't get the great deals, I might not shop there as much, right? I would like to know which group I'm in.
That's absolutely right. Now, has Kroger been a little bit transparent with their customers, letting them see their profiles and having a chance to correct it or make it right?
No, only a few states in the country allow people to go ahead and request their individual shopper profiles or back-end data that companies collect about them. Oregon is one, Delaware is another, California has a lot to some degree, Georgia, from what we can tell, does not have that. So not everyone can see what companies collect about them. But increasingly, more and more states are putting laws in the books that allow for that.
You mentioned that, there's loyalty programs are popping up everywhere and just about for everything. Is Kroger the only one doing this type of program, or are there others out there?
Many others. I mean, a lot of retailers use a lot of sophisticated data to market or sell stuff to you, right? Kroger is just unique because they're probably the most technologically savvy and sophisticated of any grocery chain in the United States, and they have a heavy presence there in Georgia and in Metro Atlanta. But many other retailers, especially those dealing with clothes or shoes or things like that, really collect a lot of data about you. They marry it with other data they find online, and they create these super detailed profiles about you. And that can be problematic and disconcerting.
You mentioned that it's nothing illegal about what they're doing, but does a consumer have any kind of rights, I guess, to fight back or make sure that their profiles are right so they're not discriminated against?
That's a good point. Yes, you do. Nearly every state allows you to, at the very least, be able to access some of the information they collect about you, like your name and address and phone number and all of that. And once you see that, you are allowed to either correct it or delete it or opt out. Opt out meaning that you don't have any more information collected about you going forward. Georgia is one of those states. Many other states have that ability. You just have to go through their privacy portal for that particular retailer or merchant.
Gotcha. All right. Derek Kravitz, really appreciate your insight, man. I didn't know that they were collecting all this data. Now I do. You're making us smarter, my friend. Appreciate you. He is the first African-American cardinal in the history of the Catholic Church and recently played his part in selecting a new pope. This week, we talked with His Eminency and Cardinal Gregory, and he was a former Archbishop of Washington, D.C., who previously served as the Archbishop of Atlanta from 2005 to 2019. And we started off asking him how much of his ties right here to Atlanta still guides his present-day work.
Well, obviously, the things that I learned in Atlanta have shaped me as a man, as a minister, as a priest. I grew to love and continue to love the folks in Atlanta. They are family for me and have been family since the day that I arrived in December of 2004 to be announced the next day as the new Archbishop of Atlanta. So it's home.
And we miss you. We miss you. Let me ask you this. What role do you believe the Catholic Church plays in addressing the current global issues?
Well, obviously, the church is a universal presence. There are more accredited ambassadors to the Holy See than any other nation. We have an opportunity through those important diplomatic locations to express the mission of the church, the proclamation of the gospel, the importance of social justice issues. We're on the playing field every place.
Let's talk about the conclave here quickly. How did you prepare spiritually for such a significant event? How did you prepare yourself?
Well, Chesley, I have to say the best preparation that I can recall was on my knees, because the conclave, while it is an election, it doesn't bring the baggage of our experiences of election, and that's a good thing for the church, that we don't go about choosing a successor to Peter with campaigns. There are no two-party system or three-party system. It's a matter of discerning and listening to each other, and hopefully listening and following the guidance of the Holy Spirit. in making those selections.
Any specific moments stood out to you that you can share with us during that process?
Well, one of the things, it was the most international conclave in the history of the Catholic Church. Pope Francis named cardinals from places throughout the world that had never had a cardinal. And so, while some people may say, well, that meant that the College of Cardinals that were assembled in the Sistine Chapel couldn't know each other as intimately as other conclaves where the numbers were much more circumscribed. They were heavily European or heavily Italian, and the knowledge of each other was obviously more was more obvious. What was a changing moment, I think, having had the experience of one conclave, what a changing moment was, while the individual cardinals may not have had the same kind of personal experience with each other, by sitting down and listening to the various cardinals describing the church in throughout the world, we may not have known them, but we got a chance to know what the church was like in this broad expanse of Catholicism throughout the world. So personal knowledge might not have been as dynamic as in past conclaves, but international and cultural and ethnic knowledge of the church in its diversity was certainly something that was different.
If you can, describe for us the moment when the name was selected and then the name chosen, Leo the 14th.
Well, obviously, there's a lot of conversation that's going on now. Why would he have chosen Leo? He obviously has knowledge and respect for Leo the 13th, his immediate Leo predecessor, who was a pope who was engaged in the social justice issues of his moment in time, which included the industrialization of the world. There are those who say that Pope Leo the 14th is very much aware that the challenge that we face now in our world has to do with technology, AI, the energy, and sometimes the destructive forces that those environments, those industries, the technological world provide.
Last question for you. Everybody wants to know this. Okay, I don't know if you can answer it or not, but everyone wants to know. The movie Conclave, first of all, did you see it?
No.
Didn't see it. Okay, all right. Well, my next question would have been, how close? How close? But you didn't see it, so it let you off the hook.
Thank you.
All right, Cardinal Gregory, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insight about the conclave and your work that you have done, not only locally here, but also around the world. Thank you for everything that you've done for us and everything you continue to do.
Thank you, Chesley. I was happy to be a part of your conversation.
And that was just a sliver of the conversation we had with Cardinal Gregory. You can check out the full conversation, the full discussion about the conclave. We talked about Pope Leo the 14th and the future of the Catholic Church. You can check it out right now on 11Alive Plus. President Trump has doubled tariffs on imported steel and aluminum from 25% to 50%. It's a move that's meant to boost U.S. metal industry, but has sparked global backlash. Canada, the top aluminum supplier of the U.S., and the officials there are calling for retaliatory tariffs. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mark Carney is hoping for diplomatic negotiations to work. Here to make sense of it all for us is Professor Ray Hill from Emory University. Professor Hill, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
All right, talk to us about Metro Atlanta and how we are going to feel these new tariffs.
Well, I don't think we're going to feel them for quite a while because, Metro Atlanta, we don't buy raw aluminum or steel. But what's going to happen is price of cars is going to go up, price of, scaffolding to build a house or a building is going to go up. Almost everything that requires metal is going to increase in price as a result.
Could the tariffs lead to job loss in our industry here in Atlanta? And what does it mean for our economy here?
Oh, well, sure. Here's the problem is that, everything that uses steel or aluminum is going to get more expensive. So people are unaware of this. We recycle a huge amount of aluminum, and we actually export the products of that recycled aluminum. That's going to get more expensive now. And so anything that's in there's no net job gain here, because every job that we might gain in steel or aluminum is going to be offset by somebody else shutting down because their inputs are now more expensive. It takes a long time to build an aluminum smelter, and you do it where the energy's cheap. That's why we import so much from Canada, because they have hydro power that fuels that. And we're not going to be building any aluminum smelters to create new jobs for quite a while, if ever.
Wow. All right, you talked about Canada real quick. Canada, we know that Canada is the top aluminum supplier for the United States. How much of this rift grows now between our northern neighbor?
How much does it risk a battle? Well, I think we're right in the middle of one now. We'll see what Carney does as the prime minister. But, Canada has all these wonderful things to give us. They've got cheap lumber, they got cheap electricity, and, Trump keeps saying that they're ripping us off. I don't know how they're ripping us off, because they supply us with a lot of very good imports that we can't produce as well ourselves.
So what happens as a backlash? If we have a problem with Canada, the things that we're getting from them that you say are cheap, obviously it drives up the cost for us, as you just mentioned, but what does it mean for us with these supplies no longer coming from the north?
Well, what it means is that they're going to keep on coming, okay, because we can't really do without it. It's just going to be more expensive. I'm not worried about a backlash from Canada, because they don't have, they're a small economy, we're a big one. The backlashes are going to come from the EU or China, because they may end up putting more restrictions on the things that we export to them. But I'm not worried about a backlash from Canada.
How about businesses here in the metro area? How would they adapt to mitigate some of these negative effects from tariffs? That's not clear. You can adapt very well. You lay off people, okay? If your inputs are more expensive and you no longer can compete, you lay off people. If you're building houses or buildings and your steel scaffolding or the aluminum that goes into your production is more expensive, you just do less of it, and you hire less people. That's unfortunately what the missing side of this. We focus on, jobs are going to get created in the steel industry and the aluminum industry. Maybe jobs are going to be lost in all the industries that use those products. How long do you think this is going to last? We've been seeing President Trump go back and forth on tariffs. Do you think this is going to have some lasting power, or something that will just come and go?
Well, you are as good a psychologist as I am to figure out what's on Trump's mind. And I don't know. I am astounded at how much we've gone back and forth already. And my guess is that as we begin to see some real inflationary impacts of all these tariffs, there's going to be a lot of pressure from the Republican Party on Trump to rescind some of this. And let's hope he declares victory. He says we've won the game, and we go back to a trading environment that we had before he became president.
Gotcha. All right, Professor Ray Hill from Emory University. Really appreciate you joining us. Thanks for your insight today. The Federal Reserve is putting out a new sobering picture of the U.S. economy, but Atlanta looks like maybe bucking that trend. CNN's Mary Beth Aber joins us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York City. First of all, good morning to you, Mary Bell, and talk to us about this blue book and what it's all about and what it says about Atlanta.
Hey, good morning, Chesley. Well, this Beige Book comes from the Federal Reserve. It's put out 8 times a year, and it gives a good look at how the economy in each of the Fed's 12 districts around the U.S. is doing. Atlanta is one of those districts. It actually takes in neighboring states as well, and it was one of the regions that reported better growth over the last 6 weeks. The area's economy grew slightly, and employment was steady, but prices did increase moderately, and consumer spending was pretty flat. Overall, for the U.S., though, the Beige Book found hiring was slowing, and that comes as consumers and businesses remain concerned about tariff-related price increases, and the Fed said all its regional districts reported elevated levels of uncertainty over the economy. That's led to a cautious approach along with hesitancy for both businesses and households, which we've been watching closely. Chesley.
Mary Bell, we've done a fair amount of reporting on data centers popping up and proposed here around the metro Atlanta area, and now it looks like Amazon is adding a new one here in the Southeast.
You know, data centers are definitely a booming business, Chesley, in Atlanta. They do need lots of power to fuel our online lives. The big race now is to build all the capacity needed for artificial intelligence. And Amazon says it will invest $10 billion to build a whole data center campus in North Carolina. It's going to be located between Charlotte and Raleigh. The campus will help Amazon expand its artificial intelligence and cloud computing efforts. It's estimated at least 500 jobs will be created at the campus, and then thousands more in related industries like construction will be supported. Amazon and other tech giants are spending billions to build out the infrastructure needed for artificial intelligence. And remember, it was just this past January that Amazon said it planned to invest about $11 billion to expand its infrastructure in Georgia. And that infrastructure will support Amazon's cloud computing and AI technologies. You know, Chesley, the big win, jobs that these build outs bring locally.
Yeah, I love to hear about the jobs. Finally, Maribel, this morning you're tracking a major recall coming out of the Ford plant. What's behind that?
Well, this is the one of those things you sort of never think about until there's a problem with it or the potential for a problem. It's the trim around the doors, and Ford is recalling nearly 500,000 older Explorer models because part of the trim could detach while driving and then cause a road hazard. The recall affects more than 492,000 Ford Explorers from model years 2016 and 2017. Ford will notify owners of the SUVs by mail, and dealers will fix the trim at no charge. Ford says it's not aware of any accidents or injuries due to the issue. As for how you may know if you have a problem with the trim, the recall notice says customers may see some of the trim separating from the top of the front doors when you're getting in and out of the vehicle. You could hear wind noise and a rattling when driving. So, Chesley, word of warning to those Ford owners. They'll be hearing from Ford, but you can be proactive and monitor your vehicle to see if that's happening to you.
You drive a Ford, Maribel?
I do not drive a Ford. I'm in New York City, Chesley, so there's no vehicle here, which means no parking garage.
I get it. Yeah, I understand the traffic around New York. So, yeah, you just take the subway everywhere you go.
Oh, yeah.
One of Atlanta's most historic neighborhoods is undergoing a dramatic shift. While Old Fourth Ward was once a majority black community, a new report reveals that that's no longer the case. 11Alive's Jonathan Martin joins us now with a closer look at it with his series Affording Atlanta. And Jonathan, a new report highlighting Atlanta, Old Fourth Ward in particular. Why is that the case?
Yeah, this is a new 50-year study on gentrification, Chesley, and they highlighted Old Fourth Ward in particular because they consider this really a poster child, if you will, for gentrification. This was once an overlooked community here in Atlanta, mainly black community, the birthplace of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In fact, Boulevard, right there in the middle of Old Fourth Ward, used to be considered the Negro Street because so many black people live there. But if you go to Old Fourth Ward now, you will notice a lot of trendy shops, a lot of high-rise apartment buildings, of course, the Beltline, and a dramatic racial shift. It is no longer a majority black community. So certainly, as these researchers say, a poster child for what gentrification can do, really shift the dynamics in a community.
When did this shift actually start taking place, Jonathan?
Yeah, well, it happened, they say, in waves. Gentrification isn't something that happens overnight. So the researchers say it started back in the 90s when Atlanta was preparing for the 96 Olympic Games. And then another wave, they say, really in the 2000s with the addition of the Beltline. So it happened over time, but it certainly has changed the makeup of the community.
City leaders have been talking about this, trying to look at growth for the city, but without displacing long-term residents there. What are some of the solutions? Do they have any?
Well, one of the big solutions, of course, we talk about it here on 11Alive a lot, is affordable housing. In fact, just yesterday, Mayor Andre Dickens announced a new affordable housing community right there in Old Fourth Ward. And there are different programs that are out there, Chesley, right now to help some legacy residents stay in their homes, help some legacy businesses stay put. But really, it is a challenge because, right, we all want growth, we want revitalization, but how do you do that without displacing a lot of these residents who really started in these communities and really made them what they are?
Some people out there might not know what gentrification is. Can you break that down for us real quickly here?
Yeah, it really is the changing of a community through largely development. It can happen in different ways. It can happen when someone comes in personally and really develops their home, and also it can come in through development. And in this case, what we saw in Old Fourth Ward was more of a developer-led gentrification. And I want to give you a quick fact. In 2000, get this, Chesley, the average median income in Old Fourth Ward was $30,000. But guess what it is today? More than $220,000. $30,000. So that shows you the shift. $30,000 20 years ago, and now it's up to $220,000. So a big shift in not only economics, but demographics as well. And this is what we found, Chesley, in this study, not just in Old Fourth Ward, but the loss of black residents in particular in 16 different census tracts here in Atlanta. And Atlanta, as we know, is known as the Black Mecca, so a lot of people are seeing this racial shift and saying, is this really the case in some of these communities?
Wow, Jonathan, do we know where the folks that are being priced out, do we know where they're going?
Well, some of them are moving out to some of the suburbs, different areas. There's not really one community, but a lot of people are being pushed out further away from the city. And that's why affordable housing is so important, because many people do want to stay in these neighborhoods. Some of the other neighborhoods where we've seen people displaced, Mechanicsville, Pittsburgh, some of these longtime black communities that are now no longer black, according to this gentrification study. And by the way, we have that full report for you on 11alive.com, so you can see specific neighborhoods if you want to look at the changes where you live.
Wow, yeah, this is a big time shift. I mean, as you had mentioned, for a long time, Atlanta being known as a black city or majority African American city, and now being shifted around here a little bit. Do you know of any other neighborhoods that have stayed that way so far?
Well, there are a lot of them that have changed that we focus on in the report. And like I said, you can go to this map. This gentrification study has a map where you can literally zero in on your specific neighborhood. Old Fourth Ward, of course, the one we highlighted in our report. And we talked to neighbors in Old Fourth Ward. We talked to a filmmaker who grew up here in Atlanta. He talks about some of the specific changes. And again, it's not all bad. People say, look, we like the changes. We like everything that's happening, but we just don't want to displace those people who really are at the heart and soul of building up these communities.
Time for my final take, and come on, sing along with me. Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and just, you know that song, right? Yeah, that song is by British pop star Rick Astley, and people sing that song everywhere you go. It seems to be the song that never goes away. Never Gonna Give You Up came back out in 1987 and peaked on the Billboard Hot 100 for 2 weeks. Now, normally you say a song, it peaks on the top 100 and then it goes away, right? Not this song. Not this one. No, in the 2000s, the song got a revival from an internet prank called the Rick Rolling. Yeah, it's when people were sent a hyperlink and it was disguised. His video would pop up if you clicked on it and they would say, "You've been Rick rolled." That earned him 1.6 billion views on YouTube. Now you may think, well, that's it. Nope. Spotify just announced this week that Rick Ashley's song made it to the Billionaire Club, the Billion Club, exceeding 1 billion streams on its Spotify platform. Wow. So even in the digital age, it seems that this song will never go away. What makes it last so long? Why do people love this song so much? I know my producer loves it as well. Well, it just goes to show you that all you need is just one hit and you will be immortal. You'll live forever. I'm gonna try to come up with a hit, but that's a pretty good one. Hey, make it a great day, folks. Try to encourage someone. Sing to them. Never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down, never gonna run around and desert you.